The Marine Corps marathon record had stood untouched since 2008, 2 hours, 19 minutes, 47 seconds. It was set by a 24-year-old Lance Corporal who'd trained his entire life for that single race. So when GPS tracking accidentally picked up an elderly jogger completing the same 26.2-mile course in 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 33 seconds, base officials assumed it was equipment malfunction, until they watched 68-year-old Robert Chen do it again the next day, and the day after that, running times that would qualify him for the Boston Marathon. Times that broke military records, times that defied everything they understood about age and athletic performance. Welcome to Veteran Stories. Before we continue this incredible story of impossible endurance, shattered records, and the moment when 15 years of quiet running revealed capabilities that redefined human limits, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe extraordinary performance can hide in the most ordinary routines, hit that subscribe button and help us share these amazing stories. Marine Corps Base Quantico covered 55,148 acres of Virginia countryside, with running trails that wound through forests, around training facilities, and past historical landmarks that had shaped American military history. The base's marathon course was legendary among military runners, 26.2 miles of challenging terrain that tested endurance, mental toughness, and the kind of determination that separated Marines from ordinary athletes. Every morning at exactly 5 a.m., Robert Chen began his daily run from the base's main fitness center. At 68, he moved with the steady efficiency of someone who'd found a sustainable rhythm and never felt the need to change it. His route varied depending on his mood and the weather, but his commitment never wavered. Robert wore simple running gear, gray shorts, a faded navy t-shirt, and running shoes that looked well used but carefully maintained. He carried no GPS watch, no heart rate monitor, no advanced fitness tracking equipment. He ran by feel, by experience, and by an internal clock that seemed more accurate than any electronic device. Base personnel occasionally noticed him during their own PT sessions. Young Marines would pass him during their formation runs, usually moving faster in their group training, but rarely sustaining the pace Robert maintained alone. He was part of the base's landscape, a quiet civilian retiree who'd earned the privilege of using military facilities through some connection to service that nobody had bothered to investigate. Most people assumed Robert was a former Marine maintaining his fitness in retirement. They were partially correct, but his actual background was far more complex than anyone imagined. Marine Corps Base Quantico had installed an advanced GPS tracking system for monitoring training exercises and ensuring the safety of personnel during solo activities. The system automatically recorded the movement of anyone carrying base-issued identification, creating detailed logs of routes, times, and performance metrics. Captain Sarah Martinez, the base fitness director, monitored these logs as part of her responsibility for maintaining training standards and identifying potential safety issues. Most of the data was routine, Marines completing their required PT, individual fitness training, and occasional recreational activities. But one set of data points kept appearing that made no sense. Every morning, GPS coordinates showed someone completing what appeared to be marathon distance runs in times that were not just fast, they were impossibly fast for the age demographic the system had identified for the runner. "This has to be a glitch," Martinez told her assistant, Lieutenant Kevin Park, as they reviewed the weekly fitness reports. The system shows a 68-year-old civilian completing 26.2-mile runs in under 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's elite athlete territory. Park examined the data more closely. "Ma'am, it's not just once. This person has been posting these times consistently for 3 months. Same route, same distance, times that are within minutes of each other every single day." Martinez frowned. Elite marathon times required years of specialized training, perfect nutrition, optimal recovery, and usually peaked in athletes' 20s or early 30s. A 68-year-old running at this level would be a global phenomenon, not a quiet retiree at a Marine base. "Let's verify this manually," Martinez decided. "I want to see who this is." The next morning, Captain Martinez positioned herself at various points along the base's marathon route to observe the mystery runner. At 5 a.m., she watched Robert Chen begin his run from the fitness center with the same quiet routine he'd maintained for years. Martinez followed in a vehicle, timing each segment of Robert's route and monitoring his pace through known distance markers. What she witnessed challenged everything she understood about human athletic performance. Robert's pace was metronomic, exactly 5 minutes and 2 seconds per mile, sustained over terrain that included hills, trails, and varied surfaces. His breathing appeared controlled, his form efficient, his effort level suggesting this was a comfortable training pace rather than maximum exertion. By mile 13, Martinez realized she was watching something extraordinary. Robert showed no signs of fatigue, no reduction in pace, no indication that he was pushing his physical limits. He was running at a speed that would challenge elite college athletes, but doing it with the casual efficiency of someone on a morning walk. At mile 20, when most marathon runners begin to struggle with exhaustion and declining pace, Robert actually seemed to get stronger. His stride remained consistent, his breathing controlled, his overall demeanor suggesting he could maintain this effort indefinitely. Martinez watched Robert complete the full 26.2-mile course in 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 41 seconds, a time that shattered the existing Marine Corps record by over 7 minutes. Captain Martinez immediately began researching Robert's background through base personnel records. What she found was surprisingly limited. Robert Chen, age 68, retired civilian, authorized base access through spouse military service, current address in Quantico residential area. But the fitness data told a different story. Robert had been posting elite marathon times consistently for 3 months, with variations of less than 30 seconds between his fastest and slowest times. This level of consistency suggested training and conditioning that went far beyond recreational fitness. Martinez decided to approach Robert directly. The next morning, she positioned herself at the finish point of his route and waited. Robert completed his run at exactly the same time as every previous day, 2:12:47. He showed no visible signs of exhaustion, no labored breathing, no indication that he'd just completed a distance that challenges the world's best endurance athletes. "Mr. Chen," Martinez said as Robert began his cool-down routine. Robert looked up, unsurprised by the interruption. "Good morning, Captain." "Sir, I'm the base fitness director. I've been reviewing GPS data from your morning runs." Robert nodded calmly. "Is there a problem with my base access?" "No, sir, but your performance data shows marathon times that are exceptional. I wanted to ask about your background." Robert was quiet for a moment, studying Martinez's expression. "What kind of background are you curious about?" "Sir, your running times that would qualify for the Olympic trials at 68 years old. That's not typical recreational fitness." Robert looked around the quiet base in the early morning light, then back at Captain Martinez. He'd known this conversation would happen eventually. Elite performance couldn't remain invisible forever. "I used to run competitively," Robert said simply. "At what level?" "International level, long time ago." Martinez felt her pulse quicken. "Olympic level?" Robert nodded once. 3 Olympics, 1976, 1980, 1984, marathon and 10,000 meters. Martinez stared at him. Olympic marathon runners were among the world's elite endurance athletes, and Robert was casually mentioning 3 Olympic appearances as if discussing the weather. "What were your times?" "Best marathon was 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 43 seconds. Boston Marathon, 1983. Martinez did quick mental calculations. 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 43 seconds was not just Olympic level. It was world class, the kind of time achieved by only a handful of runners in history. And Robert was still running within 3 minutes of that time, 40 years later, at age 68. "Sir," Martinez said carefully, "that would have been one of the fastest marathon times in the world in 1983. "It was the second fastest that year," Robert replied matter-of-factly. Over the next hour, as they walked back toward the fitness center, Robert shared pieces of his athletic history. He'd been born in Taiwan, moved to the United States for college, and discovered his exceptional endurance capabilities while running track at Stanford University. His Olympic career had spanned the height of international marathon competition, competing against runners who'd set world records and defined the sport for a generation. After retiring from competition in 1985, Robert had continued training at a high level, but privately, without seeking attention or recognition. "Why do you still train at this intensity?" Martinez asked. Robert considered the question carefully. "Because stopping would be like forgetting who I am. Running at this level isn't just exercise for me. It's how I understand my relationship with physical limits." "But why here? Why not join elite running groups or masters competitions?" "Because elite running groups come with expectations, competitions, recognition. I'm finished with that part of running. Now I run for the same reason I breathe, because it's necessary." Martinez began to understand. Robert wasn't hiding his capabilities. He was simply continuing his life's discipline without needing external validation. Captain Martinez felt obligated to verify Robert's claims about his Olympic history. That afternoon, she researched international marathon records from the 1970s and 1980s, looking for documentation of Robert Chen's competitive career. What she found exceeded even her expectations. Robert hadn't just been an Olympic athlete, he'd been one of the world's premier marathon runners for nearly a decade. His personal best of 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 43 seconds had been the second fastest time in the world in 1983, and he'd finished in the top 10 in 2 Olympic marathons. More impressive was his consistency. Robert had run under 2:12 in marathons over 40 times, posted times under 2:15 more than 100 times, and maintained elite performance for longer than most professional runners' entire careers. Articles from the 1980s described Robert as one of the most technically perfect distance runners of his generation. Efficient form, tactical intelligence, and the kind of mental toughness that allowed him to negative split marathons when other elite runners were struggling to maintain pace. But after 1985, Robert had disappeared from competitive running entirely. No masters competitions, no comeback attempts, no coaching or involvement in the sport that had defined his young adult life. Until now, when GPS tracking at Marine Base Quantico had accidentally revealed that one of history's great marathoners was still running at world-class levels at age 68. When Martinez shared her findings with Base Command, the response was immediate interest in what they now understood was a living legend using their facilities. But Robert's reaction to potential recognition was immediate resistance. "Captain Martinez," Robert said when she approached him about possible publicity or recognition, "I appreciate your interest, but I'm not looking to return to competitive running or public attention." "Sir, with respect, your current performance is probably the best age group marathon running in the world. The running community would be amazed by what you're achieving." Robert shook his head. "The running community was good to me for many years, but I left that world for reasons that still matter to me. I'm content running alone on my own terms." Martinez understood, but she felt obligated to point out the implications. "Sir, you're probably breaking age group world records every day. That seems like something worth documenting." "Records are for people who need to prove something," Robert replied. "I'm not trying to prove anything anymore. I'm just trying to maintain something that's important to me." Over several conversations, Martinez and Robert reached an understanding. Robert would continue his daily runs without interference or publicity, but he agreed to occasionally share his knowledge with Marines who were serious about endurance training. This arrangement led to informal mentoring sessions where Robert would provide guidance to Marines training for elite competitions or special assignments requiring exceptional endurance. His advice was technical, practical, and based on decades of experience at the highest levels of international competition. Robert told a group of Marines training for competitive events, "The most important thing about marathon running is understanding that your body is capable of far more than your mind believes possible. The training teaches your mind to trust your body's capabilities." Young Marines were amazed by Robert's knowledge of running physiology, race tactics, and mental strategies that weren't covered in standard military fitness manuals. They learned techniques for pacing, nutrition, and recovery that had been developed at the Olympic level. But Robert insisted on maintaining boundaries. "I'll share what I know about training and technique," he told Martinez, "but I'm not interested in demonstrations or publicity. My running is personal now." Word of Robert's background spread quietly through the marine fitness community at Quantico, not as publicity or recognition-seeking, but as professional respect for someone whose achievements had redefined what was considered possible in endurance sports. Young Marines began requesting assignment to base running programs, hoping to learn from someone who'd competed at the highest levels of international athletics. Robert's informal guidance sessions became some of the most sought-after training opportunities on the base. "How do you maintain that level of performance at your age?" asked Corporal Jennifer Walsh, a serious distance runner who was training for Marine Corps competitive teams. "By never thinking of it as maintaining," Robert replied. "I'm not trying to hold on to past performance. I'm discovering what's possible now, at this age, with this body. That keeps it interesting." The Marines who trained with Robert learned more than running techniques. They learned about dedication, consistency, and the kind of long-term thinking that allows for sustainable excellence over decades. 6 months after discovering Robert's background, Captain Martinez faced a challenge. The Marine Corps was hosting an inter-service marathon competition, and their best runners were struggling to achieve qualifying times that would allow them to compete competitively against Army and Navy teams. Martinez approached Robert about possibly helping with race strategy and pacing guidance for the Marine team. "Sir, we have some exceptional young runners, but they lack experience with elite-level race tactics. Would you consider providing tactical advice?" Robert agreed to observe the Marines' training and offer suggestions about pacing, race strategy, and mental preparation. His advice was immediately evident in improved performance. "Most of you are running the first half of your marathons too fast," Robert told the Marine team. "Elite marathon running is about negative splits, running the second half faster than the first half. That requires patience and confidence in your fitness." Under Robert's guidance, 3 Marines achieved personal best times that qualified them for elite military competitions. Their improved performance was directly attributable to tactical knowledge Robert had developed over years of international competition. The success of Marines who'd trained with Robert's guidance attracted attention from military fitness leadership. The Marine Corps distance running program requested formal consultation from Robert about training methods and competitive strategy. Robert declined official positions, but agreed to continue providing informal guidance to Marines who demonstrated serious commitment to endurance excellence. "I'm not interested in becoming a coach or trainer," Robert told Marine leadership, "but if individual Marines want to learn about elite-level endurance training, I'm willing to share what I know." This arrangement allowed Robert to maintain his privacy while contributing his expertise to military fitness development. Young Marines learned from one of history's great endurance athletes without Robert having to return to the public attention he'd deliberately left behind. 2 years after Captain Martinez first discovered Robert's elite performance, his influence on Marine Corps endurance training had become significant. Marines who'd learned from Robert were posting performance improvements that exceeded normal training progressions. More importantly, Robert had taught them about the mental aspects of endurance performance that weren't covered in standard training manuals. Patience, consistency, and long-term thinking became hallmarks of Marines who'd been influenced by his guidance. "The greatest lesson Robert taught us," Captain Martinez reflected in her fitness program evaluations, "wasn't about running technique or training methods. It was about understanding that excellence is a daily practice, not a destination." Robert continued his daily runs, maintaining the same routine that had accidentally revealed his extraordinary capabilities. But now his morning routes occasionally included young Marines who'd earned the privilege of training with one of the world's great endurance athletes. 3 years after their first conversation, Captain Martinez had come to understand that Robert's daily running wasn't about breaking records or maintaining past glory. It was about continuing a relationship with human performance that had defined his adult life. "Robert," she said during one of their occasional conversations. "Do you ever miss competitive running?" Robert was quiet for a moment, watching Marines complete their morning PT in the distance. "I miss the clarity of competition," he said finally. "The simplicity of having one goal, run faster than everyone else. But I don't miss the pressure, the expectations, or the way competition can change your relationship with something you love." "So now you run for different reasons?" "Now I run to see what's possible. At this age, with this body, on this day. That's more interesting to me than comparing my performance to other people or to my younger self." Martinez understood. Robert had evolved from competitive excellence to personal exploration, using his daily runs to continue discovering the limits of human endurance. At age 71, Robert continued his daily marathon pace runs at Marine Base Quantico. His times had slowed slightly. He now averaged around 2:15 for the full marathon distance, but his consistency remained extraordinary. Young Marines still sought his guidance, still marveled at his endurance capabilities, still learned from his decades of experience at the highest levels of international competition. But Robert had successfully maintained the balance between sharing his knowledge and preserving his privacy. "The most important thing I've learned about endurance," Robert told a new group of Marines, "is that it's not about suffering or pushing through pain. Real endurance comes from finding a sustainable relationship with effort, something you can maintain not just for one race, but for decades." This philosophy had allowed Robert to continue elite-level performance long past the age when most athletes retire, and it continued to influence Marines who carried his lessons into their own military careers. 5 years after GPS tracking had accidentally revealed his extraordinary capabilities, Robert received an unexpected honor. The Marine Corps requested permission to name their marathon course the Robert Chen Endurance Trail, in recognition of his contributions to military fitness development. Robert initially declined the honor, preferring to maintain his anonymity. But after discussion with Marines who'd benefited from his guidance, he agreed to a small dedication ceremony with the understanding that it would focus on endurance excellence rather than his personal achievements. During the ceremony, Robert was introduced not as a former Olympic athlete, but as someone who demonstrated that elite performance could be a lifelong practice rather than a brief career phase. "Excellence isn't about winning competitions," Robert told the assembled Marines. "It's about discovering what you're capable of, then maintaining that standard as a way of life." As the ceremony concluded, Robert returned to his daily routine. The same 5 a.m. start time, the same route through Quantico's trails, the same commitment to endurance excellence that had accidentally revealed one of distance running's greatest ongoing performances. Some records are set in stadiums, timed to the 100th of a second, celebrated by crowds and documented in history books. But Robert Chen's most impressive achievement was something else entirely. The daily practice of excellence, sustained over decades, performed in solitude, motivated not by recognition, but by an internal commitment to discovering human limits. Robert Chen never intended for his elite endurance capabilities to be discovered. He'd found peace in anonymous training, seeking the satisfaction of personal excellence without the pressures of competition or public recognition. When GPS tracking accidentally revealed that a 68-year-old retiree was regularly breaking Marine Corps marathon records, it exposed something extraordinary. Elite athletic performance could continue far beyond what most people considered possible, sustained by dedication, consistency, and a redefined relationship with achievement. Robert's story reminds us that the greatest performances often happen without audiences, that true excellence is measured not by comparison to others, but by commitment to personal standards, and that some records are less important than the daily practice that makes them possible. The Marines who learned from Robert didn't just improve their running times, they learned about dedication, patience, and the kind of long-term thinking that allows for sustainable excellence throughout life. So now I ask you, have you ever encountered someone whose daily routine suggested capabilities far beyond what you initially realized? Someone whose quiet consistency revealed depths of skill and dedication you couldn't have imagined? Share their story in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. Because at Veteran Stories, we believe that the most impressive achievements often happen in silence, performed by people who've redefined what it means to excel. Subscribe if stories like this matter to you. Because every community has people like Robert Chen, individuals who've found ways to maintain excellence as a lifelong practice, inspiring others not through competition, but through the quiet power of sustained dedication.